Hello, welcome to this farm tour at Weston. My name is Hamish Evans from Middle Ground Growers, and it's late October currently, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to show you quickly around the plot, show you what we've got growing at the moment. So we're just going into winter. We've got beds absolutely full of crops, loads of roots, loads of greens, loads of brassicas, so we're in a really good position this year. Every year our winter growing gets a bit better, we can grow for longer through the seasons, we've got better storage. So yeah, excited to show you the plot. Here we go, we're in the market garden at the moment. So on my left here we've got a lot of our salad greens that we've been planting over the summer. So the key with good winter growing is to really get lots of plants in the ground, planting in August, September, and have nice full beds going into winter. Everything grows a lot slower through the winter months, so it's good to have really full beds that you can just cut back. Over the summer everything's growing so fast, you can get multiple cuts from each bed and you can re-sow and plant and things grow straight away. But into winter we're really looking to have big full beds from this point onwards. See loads of fungal life coming from our this is our wood chip paths, really help this, and these market garden beds were planted, well, they were built just in January and then planted. They've had a few crops in there this year, and now the soil is really integrating with the existing soil below. So we added compost, doing the no dig method, so it's a completely no-till market garden, and now we're getting to a real good stage where there's so many worms in the soil there, so much soil health, looking really healthy. And we now got to the stage where we can actually do a lot of the bed prep, preparing the soil very minimally with these two tools. So we've just got a hoe. Once we've harvested a crop, we'll just hoe the bed off quickly. And this also, if you get used to the hoe, you can also use it just to rake the bed and prepare it nicely. And then we simply go in after that with the griddler, which just marks on a grid. 5 rows, as you can see, we've just planted all of this mustard. So it just marks out a nice grid, ready for us to plant into. And that's it, no disturbance of the soil, it's really quick and easy. We can harvest, prepare and plant a new bed less than an hour, and these are 20-metre long beds, and each one provides a lot of food. I've got a few hundred bunches of beetroot just there in front of me. I've got dill either side of it, lots of spring onions and onions that are going to overwinter, young chard crops, the last of our celery we just harvested for veg boxes today, which has been going absolutely all summer long, even through the droughts. It's done really well. So you can just see the no-dig beds here in autumn. Bit less colour and bit less summer veg now, as we've taken out a lot of the beans, courgettes. We've been trying to clear space to get all that winter veg planted. A lot of things we've just left go to seed, partly for pollinators, but partly because they've got other uses. So these fennel crops, the fennel seed's great. A lot of our restaurants like to use it for flavouring foods. It's also great for our bees and our hives and all the other pollinators. And then to my right here, we're just going up to the brassica block. So we've got loads of brassicas in here. Kale, different types of kale, lots of big giant cauliflowers, ready for winter veg boxes, lots of giant cabbages, broccoli. And you can see it's very densely planted. So we just harvested these cabbages here. We get a few hundred cabbages from one long bed. So comparing that to more field scale and more conventional cropping, that would, can sometimes take a whole field to get a similar crop, or a small field to get a similar crop to what we get in a tiny bed space. And that's because of this no dig method, minimal tillage. It's always because we plant things very close together, which is actually it's a bio-intensive method, but not in this kind of chemically intensive farming terminology, but actually bio-intensive as in there's promoting soil health, having lots of life in the soil actually yields abundant healthy crops, and actually having things planted really close together, contrary to a lot of conventional gardening and farming knowledge, it actually works really well for us. It keeps the soil covered, there's no empty soil in these beds, loads of brassica plants, keeps the soil covered, which is really good, keeps the moisture in, and actually stops the weeds coming up. You can see there's just absence of weeds in the soil there, partly because of the no tillage, because tillage brings up weed seeds, but largely because of this close planting method. We also combine that for good soil health. We combine it with green manures, cover crops. That's crops that will be feeding the soil, helping it through winter, either in structural terms or with helping create more airspace, more organic matter. See loads of bees coming into this Phacelia, which is a great green manure. Puts nitrogen in the soil, but most of all just creates really nice structure to the soil and adds a lot of organic matter. This has grown really quick. And we've underplanted it with our beans, so our beans are finished. And then we had some storms that blew the poles over a bit. Our Belotti beans, we're just harvesting the last of them. They're finished. And then the undercrop of Phacelia, which we sowed about 6 weeks ago, is now taking over. So that's going to feed the soil, replenish it loads over winter. And next year we'll have some, this will be the section for root crops. So we've got a little crop rotation in the market garden. And over here we've got a new block. We're still extending the market garden, putting down compost. And this is covered small brassica plants, lots of kale and broccoli. And that'll feed us through the hunger gap. Just in here we've got empty beds. It's actually full of broad bean seeds, things that will overwinter, these broad beans. And again, they fix nitrogen, but we'll also get a crop of broad beans in the early spring when there's not much else around. So there's the market garden. And now we're just coming up through to the field blocks. So the pattern here is we've got a row of fruit trees underplanted by berry bushes. Can't see them so well now because the leaves have come off. Got berry bushes here. Fruit tree, this is medlar. And we were a few fruits on it this year, but they're quite young trees. And then there's a strip that was wildflowers this year. That grassy strip just there. Not many left now, we've had our first frosts. And then after that we have the crops. So these are all of our overwintering leeks, onions, garlic. We've got absolutely loads of there in. So that'll be for our crops for spring. And you can see the same pattern here. We've got a row of fruit trees, about 20 fruit trees, 4 metres apart, underplanted with berries. And then we've got all of our brassica crops in here. So our field brassicas of kale, thousands of cabbage. And you can see it's a sort of natural, semi-natural farming method because we've done very minimal tillage in the fields, but because it's a much larger area and because we're going from monoculture grass to much more diverse cropping and wildflowers, etc., we'd have actually disturbed the soil here more than we'd like to in order to get these plants in. But then actually the interference has been very minimal, and we've actually found we can get by and get really good crops and kind of actually find a bit of harmony with the weeds and grasses around. So it's a very different system to the market garden. Relies also more on cover crops. Doesn't rely on any compost brought in, but we are still using the tractor a bit and cultivating the ground. So pros and cons to each. But the field crops are also really good at providing those bulk foods. Got a lot of onions in, a lot of squash, a lot of potatoes, things like that. And the field scale we can also manage more effectively at a good scale for using this land well. And we can also replenish the soil here with cover crops. As you can see, a big crop of Phacelia here, which is just going to cover the soil over winter, just like that purple flowered plant down there. It'll be this field, and the next one will be covered in it over winter. And you can see another row of trees here, under crop of currants, and the pattern repeats. So we've got 6 field blocks like this, called alley crops, where we grow veg and different plants, sometimes perennials, fruits and herbs as well. We grow them in between the rows of trees, so the trees really stabilise the ground, bring in lots of biodiversity, hold the soil in, provide loads of benefits, and it's much more mimicking a natural ecosystem. So it's moving towards natural farming. It's also using this restoration agriculture model that we can actually grow food whilst restoring lands, contrary to a lot of the polarised debates going around. And here's our beetroot block. So we've got a few beds of beetroots. These beds are much longer than the market garden, although they don't always look at it in perspective, but they're 60-metre long beds in the fields. And these are similarly managed to those field brassicas down there. Got loads of turnips and storage beetroots for winter. Our carrots are in the next block over. And now we come up to the top of the land, where the great views are, which I'll just show you in a minute. And here on our archaeological surveys, this mound here, very unique, and lots of interesting grasses as well. Quite a unique feature in the land. It came up as a potential long barrow site, which couldn't be confirmed in the surveys, but we're going to go with that because it's quite special to have a long barrow on the site. This field block we've left uncultivated, partly because to respect the long barrow, don't want to disturb the ancestors, and partly because we don't actually need to cultivate at the moment, and the grass here is quite appropriate. We might do some perennial planting such as berries further down the line, but we're not sure yet. We've got plenty of cropping space. So here's a view from the top. Market garden looks tiny from up here, but it's quite a big field. It's 16 acres, or big in terms of small scale agriculture at least. And there's our lovely views over Bath, so we can see the community we're serving. Can see all those. We can actually see a lot of our veg box customers and restaurants from here, which is nice. And then to our other side, we've got the beautiful Kelvston Roundhill just behind that. These lynch pits here, they're called. They're sort of old features, landscape features. Here we are at the top of the land, and we're just walking through the squash field. We've harvested about half of this. And again, you can see the repeating pattern, the young trees in there. We've got our late apples there. And to my left, we've got the pear trees at the back row, which you might just be able to see. They'll be really kicking in a couple of years with the fruiting rather than straight away. Or even longer for pears, really. The apples will be a couple of years. And here's some of our squash left to harvest. And our field scale up here has been a similar method to down the bottom, where we've had very minimal light cultivation in order to transition from monoculture grass towards more diverse crops. We've undersown it with different green manures and legumes and wild flowers, some of which are still there, but it was absolutely buzzing with life in summer. We're now nearly into November, so we've had the first frosts, not heavy enough ones to ruin the pumpkins, but we will be harvesting these guys in the next week. Loads of pumpkins, nearly Halloween. There's our beautiful squash field. And we're just walking up past the bees. They're still just about active because it's quite a mild autumn. They're still buzzing away. And because we've got wildflowers interspersed across the site, and also flowers we've introduced, such as calendula and the phacelia, the cover crops, the bees go right across the whole fields. They go over the market garden, they pollinate everything, pollinate the fruit tree crops, pollinate the vegetable plants. Yeah, they're doing loads of work. And partly for those reasons and partly for just common sense, our beekeepers leave a lot of honey in there over winter for the bees, so they have plenty to keep going by their own means. And we're just coming down to the lower field, which has got less going on in terms of cultivation and growing in human terms, but actually a lot more going on in many other ways. There's much more diverse grassland, loads of fungal life, loads going on because it's been not so cultivated, this field. It's been grazed occasionally. There's also historically a little stream going down here, which we hope to restore. And we've still got active overground spring water, hence our name, Weston Spring Farm, just coming out underneath that oak tree. Really, it's a really special place. There's almost two big, thick legs of the oak tree, and in between this spring water comes gushing out. So it's quite a special source of water, source of life for this farm. And you can just see the beginnings of the coppice down there, so we're hoping the coppice can be part of the overall farm system, but also provide, nut crops and fuel crops, and we'll actually use that to wood chip, using piles of wood like this to actually wood chip and turn into compost. So our fertility systems on the farm are really cyclical, and the wood chip's great for pathways and life in the market garden, as you saw. And the rest of this lower field will be restoring the wetland. Be developing those sort of plans over the coming years. At the moment, the lower field is largely remaining untouched until we come up with the appropriate design and do all the surveying work, etc. Probably include some wildflowers on the this sort of northeasterly facing strip. Maybe some more fruit trees eventually, or wood pasture is another potential natural ecosystem we could restore here, but also integrate it with good production or long-term nut crops, fuel crops, timber crops, that sort of thing, managed in a regenerative way. So watch this space for those developments, but at the moment not much going on in that lower field. There's a nuttery down the far end, just in the corner there, and the plum orchard is a bit further up there as well. But I think I'll leave it there for our autumn winter tour. So going into November, beds are looking good, crops are looking good, and yeah, we'll update over the winter, see how it's all looking. Thank you for watching, all the best, bye bye.